Like our economy, America's leading freight railroad is always on. We are operators, supply chain experts, and problem solvers, working as one to solve whatever comes our way. We stand for precision, constant progression, commitment to efficiency, and an obsession for customer service. And when we stand together, there's nothing we can't deliver.
Hello, welcome to a special episode of PSR, People Speaking Rail. I am your host, Mike Bowden-Distel, head of Intermodal Solutions here at FreightWaves Sonar. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, CEO of CSX, Joe Hinrichs. Joe, thank you for joining me.
All right, thanks for having me. It's good to be with you.
Absolutely. Just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background in the auto industry and how that led to you managing CSX?
Yeah, sure. I actually spent over 30 years in the auto industry. I retired as president of Ford Motor Company in March of 2020, so a little over 4 years ago. I took a couple of years off, was on several boards of directors and things of that nature, and then I got recruited to come back out of retirement to be here at CSX. So what's been great about that is to bring that customer perspective. And actually over 20 years ago, I ran logistics and transportation actually for Ford globally, so I had a lot of interaction with the railroads back in 2002, 2003. So I have a lot of that background, but really excited to be here. And now that customer perspective is never going to leave me. So we're trying to bring that to life at CSX.
Yeah. And as a railroad customer, what did you see the railroads doing right and wrong? And how does that inform your perception of CSX?
Yeah. On the positive side, certainly could offer a large scale and lower cost, usually. Certainly better for the environment, the things we talk about often. But frankly, our experiences weren't that positive. And so we brought that real reality and that honesty to our conversations here, both in the whole rail industry, but certainly at CSX. The reliability, dependability around scheduling and around service is really the number one driver. And I watched over 20 plus years the auto industry move away from moving many goods via rail to moving via truck. Now, some of that was part of the just-in-time and moving to more lower inventory, saving cash, but also just-in-time inventories. But a lot of that had to do with just losing faith in the railroad's ability to be on schedule and be on time. Certainly, finished vehicles continue to be significantly, a vast majority of that volume continue to be shipped via rail. But other components, engines, transmissions, frames, sheet metal, all that used to move via rail, now it moves via truck. So I saw a lot of change happen over time. Saw a lot of rail docks get removed and put in truck docks into our manufacturing plants. And so we have to really step back and think about why that happened, how it happened, what we're going to do about it if we want to change it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So the railroads, they've in general struggled to grow volume, the carload volume over the last several years. I know one of your initiatives is to grow volume, help to grow the volume with your customers, make your customer supply chains more rail oriented. What are some of the things you're going to do to help achieve that?
Yeah. So, profitable growth is really our objective. And, all the stakeholders win if the railroads can profitably grow. Employees win, unions win, government regulators win, the economy wins, the environment wins, et cetera. Our belief started when I got here really is that if we don't work on the culture and the experience our employees have, we're not going to get to the levels of customer service that our customers deserve, and therefore be interested in talking about possibly growing with us. So it starts with understanding that customers have chosen to move away from rail because of their lack of confidence and their belief that we don't prioritize service and that reliable, dependable service. Especially customers who are more sensitive to that, running their whole logistics network on time. And so we started to work on, almost 2 years ago now, this One CSX Culture Initiative, which is really about bringing about a change in that relationship we have with our employees, especially the employees that do the work out in the field. We're 197 years old. You go back to the 1800s, there was a lot of strife between, rail workers and the monopolies at the time, the big, the big companies, but also just over time, we've grown up with 13 different unions. We have all this complexity. And we have to get back to focusing on how to create an environment where our employees can be successful, because they're the ones delivering that service. Any good customer service business, any good customer service organization that you may think of, or you think about companies that you like doing business with, I promise you, they focus on their employees, and the employees are the ones who create that energy and that service. So our belief is you got to change the culture of the railroad to be more employee-centric, to create a better environment that employees want to be in, they want to serve. Because our railroaders are very proud. They do great work. It's an outdoor sport, as you know. So work on the culture, focused on improving safety and customer service, and be more reliable, more dependable, get rid of the long tails of missing, being late by a day or two, or not communicating. It's all about prioritizing the employees and the customers. And our belief is if you can provide much more reliable and dependable service to our customers, they should be motivated to do more work with rail. We're lower cost usually. We're certainly better for the environment, better for society overall, for safety, also for taxpayers, because obviously our rail infrastructure is funded by us. Taxpayers fund the roads that the trucks do a lot of damage to, and it's safer. All those things that we know. But we have to get to a level where customers believe that we're prioritizing them and service for them to be willing to talk about growing with us. Because they've been, for 20 years, we've been pushing them away. Yes, we've had cold decline, which is also part of the volume decline. No doubt about it. But most importantly, customers moved away because they couldn't count on us, and we have to be more reliable.
Yeah, it is. Makes a lot of sense how you link the labor morale to the customer service, because one of the things that happened during the pandemic is didn't have the employees to move the rail cars. So that's a huge component of it.
Interesting. We didn't have employees because we furloughed them, and a lot of them didn't come back. They didn't come back because they had other options, and because they were miserable. They told us that. And I can tell you in our surveys, we survey our employees every year. Our employees out in the field were telling us they were no longer referring people to CSX or other railroads, because I know it was true about all the railroads, because the place had gotten to a point where it wasn't a good place to work in their eyes. And so we had to change that to get, historically, you got all your good employees. A lot of your good employees came from referrals and multi-generational railroaders. They knew what it was like to be a railroader. And we lost that. And we're getting it back at CSX now. But that's critically important to that pipeline of talented people that want to be railroaders, but also creating an environment people want to be a part of. And then they don't leave when there's downturn.
And it's changing that culture, having the guys be able to take time off when they need it, work rules, all of those things.
It's all the above. I mean, certainly trying to find solutions to make a more predictable schedule is a high priority for our workforce. It's hard. We're a 24/7 operation. The weather and all kinds of other things disrupt us. But making every attempt. Like this year, we got every employee home on Christmas, either Christmas morning or Christmas Eve. They appreciated that effort. It took effort to make that happen, but we were able to get everybody home on Christmas, either in the morning or afternoon or evening, depending on how it played out. That's an example. But yes, working on more consistent schedules. We're not going to be perfect. Not everybody's going to get there. But also just listening. Just listening to our employees about what's bothering them, what's important to them. When paid sick leave was a big issue, we were the first ones to resolve it and find a solution. Our employees tell us that, hey, that the cleanliness and the quality of the ballast and the whole yard when we were switching cars, make that a priority because it's important to us. We're walking out there every day. Just listening to the little things that people are telling us so they feel valued and appreciated. And that goes a long way for people being motivated to do the work. Now, in our industry, most of our employees are not supervised directly and they're not tied to an assembly line or anything. So the work effort really matters. And if people are motivated, they feel part of a team. They're going to contribute one way. If they're bitter, upset, mad, angry, they're going to contribute a different way. And we have to realize that our environment is that way. So it doesn't mean we all sit around the campfire and sing songs and hold hands, but it's all about listening to each other to improve safety, customer service, and efficiency.
Yeah, and related to that, with customer service, I mean, part of it is having enough resources in place for when there's a volume surge or for when there's a disruptive event. I mean, there's all the speculation this might be a really big, hurricane season's already sort of has been. In the East, you had the bridge collapse in Baltimore, other things, arise. How do you balance dealing with the potential volume surge, having those resources in place with the desire to have a more flexible, cost structure?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, one of the biggest challenges we have in this industry is it takes a long time to get somebody trained to be able to be a conductor, right? And then the conductors become engineers. So you're talking at least 6 months or more to hire somebody from the street and have them be able to be a conductor on their own. So our ability to change course quickly is very challenging. So forecasting, accuracy, and being able to work together with people is really important. But the most important thing is the fluidity of the network and the network's ability to respond. And that goes back to making sure we have the right people showing up to work, trained and capable of doing the work. We have the locomotives where they need to be, and that our network keeps moving, that we don't get gummed up anywhere, we don't get jammed up in the yards, et cetera. And that's all about process discipline, working together, people really focused on working together to make that happen. So our resiliency is largely tied to our ability to react to near-term issues, whether it's weather, whether it's some other collapse of a bridge or whatever. And that comes from how people work together and having the right resources in the right place. So resource planning is a big part of this. And you have to be able to plan out 6, 9, 12 months to let that happen. But another big part of it is reducing the attrition rate, because we were losing a lot of people. We train all these people and then they would leave us. And reducing that attrition rate is back to that culture piece, back to that making a place feel proud to work. They want to work here. They like working here. They like the environment. Because when we train somebody, it takes 6, 9 months and then they leave, we had to do that cycle all over again. And now we may run the risk of being short people. So all these things fit together.
Absolutely. Certainly they'll fit together. I also wanted to ask you, on your earnings call, you said that your operations team had been together about 6 months, maybe by now it's about 7 months. You want to talk about your operations team a little bit and what sort of changes and things you have in the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of the team we put together. We've made a lot of changes over the last year or so. Mike Corey came out of retirement, who was a long-time railroader with CN. He was COO of CN, retired for a couple of years like myself, and came out of retirement to do this because we both want to do it. We think it's worth doing. So Mike at the top, setting the tone, all his experience, his energy, his positivity, wanting to teach. We brought in a couple more people that worked with Mike in the past, but we had a very talented team here as well. The combination of all of those people really working well together, both as an operations leadership team, but also quickly with our sales and marketing team. Matter of fact, today, they're all down going over our coal business together in a room. There's 30 people. They're all this energy, sales and marketing, operations leadership team together, talking about, how we're going to run the business. What are the opportunities? What can we learn from what's happened so far this year, et cetera. And that's the kind of environment we want to create. A lot of teamwork, a lot of collaboration, a lot of transparency. And it starts with us as leaders to create that environment. But we really have a talented team of people that are really working hard to work together to create the CSX we want to become.
That's great. Sounds like they have a lot of good ideas. I want to ask you a little bit about some of the individual business segments. I follow Intermodal closely here. Where do you see the most conversion opportunities from truckload to rail?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the biggest opportunities on Intermodal overall. If you look at our business in total, a lot of the materials that already move in merchandise, carloads on rail are going to continue to do so. But the big opportunity is for us to think differently about Intermodal. I referenced earlier automotive components, for example. We used to load those into boxcars, and those docks don't exist anymore in manufacturing plants. But also, they didn't trust the reliability and repeatability of that service. But what if we were able to think differently about loading those materials into containers and then trucking them over to the rail yard, put them on Intermodal, and go fast and then come out? We got to be able to create people to think about that way of doing business again, whether it's tires or I'm talking about if you want to stay in the automotive space, but even beyond the automotive space. I'm really proud of the growth we've had with people like UPS and Amazon and others, because they're very time sensitive and they're very service oriented. But the most important thing we can do to be able to get trucks off the road and get material back in is to deliver high levels of service and increase our speed. So get rid of all the out of route miles, increase our speed, and increase our levels of service to get to the levels where they can trust us and they're willing to put it on rail. And even if we have to, we take it off the rail if we're not going to make a shipment. We do that in some cases for some of our customers. because we're committed to serving them. And that's the mindset that we have to have in order to get people to think more about rail versus truck.
Yeah, absolutely. In your chemical segment, did the acquisition of the Quality Carriers, did that have an impact on service levels and what you can deliver to customers there?
Yeah, a couple of things about Quality Carriers. First of all, they're a very well-run trucking company. Randy and the team do a great job there, and they're based out of Tampa. We let them largely run their own business. But what's helped us is actually our chemical customers are our largest segment of our customer base. And Quality Carriers is the largest chemical, trucking company in North America. So it gave us access to more information and more relationships with our chemical customers that can help us find solutions. But creatively, what the team did, working together with Quality Carriers and CSX, developed an ISO tank proposal for intermodal. So whereas before you had the option of tank cars on rail, or you did, trucking, but now we're providing intermodal product where you actually load the ISO tank, we truck it over like a container, 50-foot container, put it on intermodal, it goes fast. On the other end, we take it off and you deliver it. So we do that with Quality Carriers. So the customer is seeing the same relationship with Quality Carriers, but on the long distance piece is being done by rail on intermodal. And we're getting a lot of good customer acceptance to that. That's a great example of trying to think differently and be innovative. How can we get more business on rail? And the benefit of having Quality Carriers as part of the family, because we jointly do that together. But also, again, we learned a lot more about our chemical customers, and we can go to them and say, whiteboard sessions, what do you need? What can Quality Carriers do? What should CSX do? And how can we serve you better?
Yeah, so you're doing so much with improving the operations, focusing customer service, focusing on employee retention, making it a good environment for the employees. It seems like from your position, really the challenge is balancing all of those things with the interests of Wall Street and the operating ratio and the threat of activist investors and all of those things. Do you have any strategies for balancing, those two things, which can sometimes be, competing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of how our team is trying to think about this. I mean, we've moved away from reporting operating ratio. I mean, it's just a math number. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but what's happened in the industry, our employees, other stakeholder groups have associated OR with cost reduction and only obsession with reducing costs. And when you think about it, we talk about operating margins, expanding margins, which creates value for shareholders. And so our view is you can expand margins by lowering your cost. You can also expand margins by increasing your revenue. And we want to do both, and we need to do both. And, I think in the second quarter, we were the most efficient, if not one of the most efficient railroads in North America, while still delivering on the highest levels of service in the industry based on what our customers were saying and surveys and whatnot. And so we believe they're not in conflict with each other. I believe that the industry sold this idea that there's a conflict between creating good service for customers and having a low OR, having better margins. Our view is you can do both. And we're trying to prove that and show that to people, that you can run a very efficient operating model, efficient business from an operating standpoint, and provide industry-leading service to customers. And the combination of the two, when you grow the business by getting customers to believe that you're prioritizing them again and giving them good service, will expand the operating margin, will expand overall margins, returning more money to shareholders, but also having obviously more money for us to reinvest in the business. So we're showing people you can do that. There's a different path forward. And our team believes in it, and we're delivering on it, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, that's great. I also wanted to ask you, I guess we're going to be hearing from you a lot this fall. You're going to STB next month. Have fun with that. And then you're doing an investor meeting later in the fall as well. Can you give us a little bit of a sneak preview as to what you're going to be speaking about at either of those events?
Well, the STB hearing is focused on growth. And so a lot of the same things that we've talked about today, I'm going to talk about there. This whole notion that the biggest inhibitor to growth of the rail industry is our service levels. And so we're going to talk about that. And then our view that in order to get those service levels up, you've got to have a better environment for employees. You got to get employees more part of creating that service experience and wanting to deliver it. No employee wants to come in and do a bad job, So that's a big part of what we'll talk about. For our investor day, we'll save that for later. We have some exciting things to talk about, what we're doing that's differentiated in the industry, but also what we're excited about for the future. Things like industrial development in the Southeast, all kinds of other things like that. So stay tuned. But we're excited about it. I'm looking forward to the STB hearing. I don't think our objective of profitable growth for the industry and for CSX is in conflict with what the STB wants. The Surface Transportation Board, since I've been a part of this industry for a little less than 2 years now, has been focused on the service levels that the railroads provide to customers. And we want to provide better service too, and we're focused on that. And I was a customer for a long time and didn't have good service, so I know what it's like. And so we're going to have an honest conversation about where we are, where we've been, but most importantly, where we're going and how we see this evolving. My view is if the industry keeps doing the same thing over and over again, we're going to get the same results. So we have to change, and it starts with our relationship with our employees.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the service is such a big thing. I mean, during the pandemic, there's some of the customers we have in the CPG industry were saying that they were going into certain terminals in Chicago, pulling their containers out. These weren't your terminals, but they're another railroad's terminals, pulling their containers out, moving them over the highway because the intermodal service wasn't there. And that same shipper is now going back to using more intermodal because the service levels have been a lot better recently. So yeah, really a critical component of it.
Well, I'm very proud of the fact that, and the Journal of Commerce does a survey of intermodal customers they do them twice a year, spring and fall. And the last 3 surveys, CSX was number 1 in each one of those. So consistency matters, but also our intermodal customers are saying the best intermodal service is with CSX. And so to your point, that's what we have to do. We have to keep delivering, executing, and getting those customers to believe they can count on us. And they don't have to worry about doing those kind of things that you talked about.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing actually from shippers complimenting on CSX's service in the past couple of years. So congratulations on that.
More to do, but we're excited. But again, it's our people. It's not me sitting in this office. It's our people that make that happen. And we got to celebrate them. We got to recognize them. We got to listen to them. And we have to keep asking them, how can we be better? What can we do differently so that we can deliver better service?
Yeah, if I was a shipper, this may be a different question, but if I was a shipper and looking at sort of truckload versus rail in certain aspects, with truckload, the pricing seems to go up high and it also seems to go down and be depressed like it has been the last couple of years. It seems like rail pricing primarily goes up. Is there any thought that maybe the pricing ultimately should be a little bit more dynamic on the rail side?
I mean, most of our business is contractual, so we don't do a lot of spot work like trucking does. So to your point, so I don't see a lot of potential for there to be this, variable pricing model. We do a little bit of it with our IMCs do it for us, right? But I think most importantly, if we keep getting more efficient, but also we show and demonstrate value to our customers, I think while customers always want lower rates, I don't think that's the inhibitor for making more progress with customers when it comes to rail. It's those other things we talked about. Customers know that rail is better for the environment, better for the taxpayer, better for congestion, safer. Most of the time it's lower cost, even at our current rates. Most of the time it's lower cost than trucking if you're going over 500 miles. So yes, we'll always look at what happens with pricing. But customers tell us most importantly, they always want lower price, but most importantly, they want reliability and dependability on service, and that's what we're focused most on.
That makes a lot of sense. I wanted to ask you, are there any parts of your network that you're focused on improving with, capital investments or different routings? I know Chicago has historically been an area of congestion for the whole industry. And, at one point, CSX was really touting that North Baltimore, Ohio intermodal facility. But anything interesting happening on the operations or capital improvement? The
team did a great job investing a lot in that Northwest Ohio terminal in North Baltimore. Actually, you're really close to where I grew up in Ohio. And a lot right now, we've been investing a lot in a couple of our locations to make the efficiency of the yard better, like Cumberland, Maryland, or Hamlet, North Carolina, or Willard, Ohio. But our big investments are continuing to be in Pan Am when we purchased Pan Am in the Northeast. So taking that rail network in the Northeast up to our capabilities and speed and safety to be able to serve all the way up to Canada, but all the way up through Maine and Massachusetts. So a lot of work going on there. Also, a lot of work going on what used to be the MMBR, which is that connection that we're going to have between CPKC and ourselves across the Meridian Speedway, and then establish a new interchange point in Myrtlewood, Alabama. It's been decades since there was a new interchange point established between the West and the East. So we're excited about that, waiting for the STB for approval for that. We're expecting that hopefully anytime soon. So the big investments going on there. We continue to invest in our locomotive fleet. We have a joint venture with CPKC on hydrogen locomotives that we're working on. We're also testing biodiesel fuels in Florida, and we're testing hybrid electrics in Curtis Bay and Baltimore. So a lot of things going on. Definitely, if you look at our CapEx spending, we took it up from 1.75 years ago billion to 2.5 billion this year, really reinvesting in the business, both for our safety, most importantly, and also for our growth potential, and also just to maintain the assets. So there's a lot going on. Excited about what we're doing, including investing, by the way, in the ISO tanks I referenced earlier with Quality Care. It's pretty significant capital investment going into those as well. So those are some key areas where we're investing.
That's great. A lot going on there. When you look back last couple of years, what's the biggest thing that surprised you about the rail industry coming from auto?
The most exciting thing that I've seen, first of all, the capability and the pride that our team has is really amazing. And so I'm glad and I'm proud to have that. Our team really is proud. They're proud of what they do. They're proud of the role they play in the economy. They're proud to be railroaders and the history and everything that goes with it. But what's been most, one of the positive things, most exciting to me is just how much potential this industry still has. Been around, we're 197 years old, but we should be doing a lot more business. But the should be is up to us. Goes back to what we've talked about. It's up to us to show to our customers that they can count on us, that we prioritize them, we care about them, and we're going to deliver good service to them reliably, repeatedly, and then all the rest of the stuff should come along. So to me, I get motivated, excited every day. It's in society's interest, it's in the economy's interest, it's in our interest, our shareholders' interest, our employees' interest, and the customer's interest for more freight to move on rail. We have to create the environment that makes that happen.
Yeah, very well said. You have just a couple of minutes left. If you don't mind, I'll ask you a couple of bonus questions on the automotive industry, just because that's where your background is, and I'm sure your wealth of information there. You think electric vehicles are going to take over, given that there's a lot of government subsidies, but at the same time, not every customer wants them? And then the other issue is, should the auto industry be concerned that Gen Z is not immediately getting their driver's license? Not all of them anyway, when they turn 16.
Well, a couple points. But first of all, electrification is coming, whether people like it or not. It's coming. What happened was everything got overhyped, as often does. There was a bubble, and that created expectations that couldn't be met at the consumer level, infrastructure level, et cetera. But electrification is happening. There are many benefits that come from an electric vehicle. You get more cab space inside, the lower center of gravity. Obviously, it's quiet, zero emissions, those kind of things. However, there are still challenges. Range anxiety is real. The infrastructure network is not set up to be able to charge quickly and have confidence around that. Many people I know that have electric vehicles, when they try and drive them outside of their normal, daily routine, they run into problems where the chargers don't work, they're backed up, they have to wait a long time. We have to fix those problems in society if we want to create more acceptance of electrification. I think what happened is some people tried to force it, and you can't force things with consumers. Consumers ultimately vote with their pocketbook. But electrification is coming, is going to grow. I just think at a more measured pace over time. Regarding Gen Z, we did a lot of research when I was president, when I was working at Ford. And what we found was this next generation is taking longer sometimes to get their driver's license. But once they get married and have a family, they have to have a driver's license. So it's just being delayed a little bit, but it's still happening. That's the research that we did. I think that still holds true. If you think about it, you need to be able to have transportation of your own. I think at the end of the day, we're going to continue to see that in America, certainly for the foreseeable future. The challenge is to be able to then, be able to offer products that consumers can afford when they're in their 20s or 30s and they're buying their first vehicle. And that's one of the challenges I think the industry continues to face, is having those entry-level vehicles to be able to bring those consumers in. Most time they buy used vehicles. The average age of the new car buyer is much older, right? In the late 40s, early to mid 50s. And so the automobile industry needs to think differently about, I think, how to approach those first-time buyers. But it's happening. It's an exciting industry. I was proud to work in it for 30 plus years. We now at CSX move more vehicles than anybody else on the railroad. So I still get connections. I'm on the board of Goodyear also, so I'm still connected a little bit to the auto industry. But exciting times everywhere. People still like to talk about their vehicles. It's still a design, element, still a part of your persona. I think that's not going to change for a while.
Yeah, very well said. And thanks so much for your time today. How can people reach out? Can shippers specifically, how can shippers reach out to CSX, learn more about how they can use rail in their supply chains?
Well, we'd love for them to reach out to our sales and marketing team. Kevin Boone's our chief commercial officer. We've got a lot of talented people in marketing sales organization. You can go to Ship CSX. You can go on to csx.com. There's lots of ways to connect with us, and we'd love to talk to you because we believe that it's in everyone's interest to get more freight back on rail, and we want to be part of that solution.
Very good. Thanks so much, Joe.